share this session with you afterwards. If there's anybody in your business or your network that you think this would be useful for, feel free to share the recording with them as well. So let's get started. We'll aim this morning to finish before 10 o'clock because I'm sure you've all got 10 o'clock meetings to go to. So we'll aim to finish by 10. So let's just talk through today's session. Many of you who have been to sessions like this with us before will know that I'm a big fan of creating thinking space. We have so much going on in our lives right now at work with all the messages and emails and stuff to do in your business and people constantly kind of getting in touch with us. You've got social media, all this other stuff that we don't really have a lot of time for quality thinking space. So this session this morning is about giving you that, hopefully giving you some of that quality time for yourself, but also time to meet some other people that are part of this session, and hopefully you get a chance to hear some ideas and learn from each other as well as from the content today. So what we're going to talk about this morning is how, if we think about 2025 and we've got a month and a bit left of 2024, how do we start to get really masterful at selling in 2025? And we're going to look at top 3 challenges that face sales teams and sales professionals. We'll look at how to address those challenges. Then there's a couple of models that I teach in my business for sales training that are really useful. And then I've got a program that I run, so I'll talk to you about the program, and if that's interesting for you, great. If it's not, no worries. And then we'll close with Q&A and just kind of think about some actions. So that's the agenda for today. As I say, we will aim to finish just before 10. I think most of you know me, but for those of you who maybe this is the first time you've had the experience of working or being on one of these webinars, just a bit of background. I first started in sales and business development in 1993, so it's like 31 years ago now. And I went through lots of different sales positions in different markets. I went into sales management in about 2003, then I went into business leadership, and I worked for different companies, very large organizations, and realized at the kind of tail end of my career that I wanted to do something different. So then I retrained as an executive coach and started to build out programs and work with clients myself. And I recognized that sometimes it's the small things that actually make the biggest impact. What's really easy in a lot of our businesses is that we start to see inconsistencies, maybe a bit of negativity, maybe even a bit of loss of motivation, and that can affect, of course, performance and results. And a lot of the things that we cover, and we'll cover this morning, are about getting back to fundamentals, getting people more engaged, getting people to do things that are more consistent, to perform at a higher level, and that drives the result. So they're kind of the 2 areas I like to think about in simple terms about what is it you can do to really turn the dial on your business. And I wrote this book. If you haven't read the book, Inspire, Influence, Sell, I'd recommend it because I wrote it, but gets really good feedback from people that have read it and start to apply the principles. And I've been at this now for, I think this is year 7. So we're starting year 7 for our business. And I keep a tally of the different people that we train. We're up to about 5,000 business and sales professionals that I've trained over the last 6, coming into year 7, which is brilliant. So we've got lots of people that have used our models. So I'd like to start this session. Let me start with a poll. So I've got a poll this morning for you. I'd love to hear your ideas on this. You should see a poll in front of you that's just popped up on the screen. I'd love to hear what your top challenge is that you're facing when you think about sales in your business. And there's 5 options in there. There's 5 options, and then there's something else. So is it sales confidence and motivation? Is it maintaining client momentum? Is it managing remote selling? Is it understanding what customers need? Is it getting the customer to meet you or your team? Or is it something else? And if there's something else that's bigger than any of those, I'd love to hear it, because these are the things that come up as themes when I work with clients and customers myself. So thanks to those of you who have clicked on the button. Just click one of those challenges. I'll be interested to hear what your one thing is. And then I'll share some results in a second. And if what you're experiencing isn't on there, so it's something else, just type it in the chat. Let me just get the chat function going. Here's the chat. So I'll just put a note in the chat saying here's the chat. So feel free to capture that. That if there's something else that's going on for you that's more important than any of those other kind of points that are on here, just drop it into the chat. Okay, so let me just share what have we got. That's interesting. So number one thing at the moment for this group is managing remote selling. Then we've got getting the customer to meet me, and then we've got maintaining client momentum, and then we've got something else, which whoever put something else, if you want to just drop that in the chat, I'll keep an eye on it, and we'll look to address that today. So that's interesting. Managing remote selling is number one. We did recently did about 4 weeks ago, we did a managing remote selling program, a managing remote selling workshop, which was a kind of 1 hour session, a bit like this, but we specifically focused on managing remote selling. So I will, if you would like a copy of that, I'll very happily share with you the content for that after today's session. Thank you very much, everybody. I've got a couple of messages in here. So let's have a look. Manisha, thanks, Manisha. I would like to say the economy and the price of treatment. And that's price of dental treatment. Okay, thank you, Manisha. Yeah, so the economy does start to impact the way people think. And really, we've got to start to almost give them some counter arguments for the way they think. So thank you, Manisha. Rabina, thanks for this. You've got someone to see at 9:45, so you'll leave around then. No problem. We'll get as much done as we can by 9:45. Thanks, Rabina. Chris is in stealth mode. Right now, so none or all apply. Thanks, Chris. Chris is weighing up his next opportunity. Brilliant. Okay, thank you, everybody. So let's, this is what normally comes up. Let me show you what normally comes up when I ask that poll. Here's the order in which those challenges tend to come up. So number one is getting the customer to meet, so getting new customer engagement, or patient engagement, I guess. Number two is sales confidence and motivation. So actually having confidence to sell and be motivated to want to grow the business, which is interesting. And then third, the thing that comes up is maintaining client momentum. So we've got two of those three in our poll this morning. And then the other kind of final two are understanding what customers really need, and then managing remote selling. Whereas today, remote selling has come up as number one, which is interesting. And then there are other challenges. So that tends to be the results that we normally see. So what I'm going to do this morning, I'll focus on these three things. We'll talk about price as well, because I think that's important, because price, there's an interesting factor around price and why and when that comes up. We'll talk about that a bit later on. Okay, so three challenges. Number one challenge, getting the customer to meet me. Number two challenge is sales confidence and motivation. Number three challenge is unable to maintain client momentum. And what you'll see I've done here is I've changed the order. I've changed the order because these are the orders that we need to address these challenges in order for them to be effective. So if we don't get clear on how to get customers engaged, and we don't get clear on how to maintain motivation and confidence, then we're not going to be able to maintain momentum with clients. We have to get these challenges resolved in the order in which they come up, or the order in which they need to be addressed. So let's talk about getting the customer to meet. There's lots of reasons why this is a challenge, but one thing is actually it's about the messaging. It's about the messaging that's delivered to the prospective client. And if people don't lead with value-led messaging rather than pitching their business or themselves or what they want to do for somebody, then you'll get customers that are disinterested and disengaged. They just won't respond. And what I've seen happen a lot is that people will just think, okay, well, I haven't got people responding to that message, I'll just send more messages to more people. But doing more of the same thing really doesn't get you any further forward. It just exhausts resources. And if we think about what's really going on, when people are either not responding or they're saying I'm too busy to meet with you, it's a result of the perceived value they have of meeting or seeing you, right? So they don't think there's going to be any value in it, so they either say no or they don't respond. So what we have to do then is think, okay, how do we change that perception of value? And we'll talk about how to do that shortly. Second challenge that comes up, as I say, is kind of loss of confidence, loss of motivation. What's going on? What's really happening is that when we think about, you know, any role where we're trying to persuade, whether it's a customer or a patient, to do something with us, and we get, you know, oh, I'll think about it, or I'm not sure it's right for me. That what the brain sees that as rejection, and rejection hurts, right? Everybody has this psychological need to be recognized and accepted in the world. And so if we haven't learned to develop a shift in our perspective and mindset to keep evolving our approach, persevering for longer, and reinterpreting what rejection means, then we can start to find ourselves feeling, you know, losing motivation, losing confidence in that conversation. And what happens very often is that people become uncertain or insecure, so they start to hesitate in those conversations. They either pull back from sales conversations and having the discussion in the first place, and they'll fill their time with other activities, whether that's routine activities or things that are kind of non-business growth activities. And that tends to happen when we see a loss in confidence and motivation. And doing more of the same thing doesn't work. So just pushing harder, just whether that's pushing your teams harder or trying to push yourself harder, doesn't work, because what we tend to find is you'll meet resistance, even sometimes that's from yourself. And then challenge number 3 is this momentum. So what I mean by momentum, and it came up in the poll, what we mean by momentum is you have someone that's potentially interested, and then they just kind of tend to go dark or drift off or don't make a decision, or there's no follow-up. And if this kind of links to engagement, if clients or prospective clients aren't fully engaged because they don't see enough value, then as people managing that client relationship, you can't get their commitment, you can't close the business, you can't close that sale. And what I see happen a lot is that people tend to talk. They kind of talk or over talk and pitch features rather than starting to think about, what does this customer need? What are they looking for as a result? Okay. And because they don't understand the customers, it's not as relevant. And then because they're not doing that connecting of the dots between what that customer said they need and what they can offer, they don't feel confident to lead the conversation. So they then might end up saying something like, well, why don't you think about it? Or I'll just, you know, let's catch up when you're ready. And that is the trigger for slowing down commitment and slowing down the sales process. So there's a few things that are interconnected here that we have to get right. Ola says momentum is the drive to change. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. It's what encourages and inspires people to change. We'll talk about how we do that. And I like to think about commitment as being pulled, not pushed. So we really try and think about, you'll have heard the term consultative selling. I'm sure you're all familiar with coaching as a principle. Both of those approaches are about drawing and pulling commitment from people, not pushing. And we really have to think about, are we doing activities, are we engaging and communicating in a way that is drawing commitment from people, rather than trying to push them to do something that perhaps isn't something that they really thought about themselves. So what happens is we tend to do more of this stuff, more and more, but the effectiveness of what we're doing declines. So sales cycles expand and lengthen, growth slows, and of course the cost of selling increases. Teams become anxious, and motivation is a problem. We get resistance sometimes, and even a bit of defensiveness. I've seen this quite a lot with the clients that I work with. And then leaders in businesses then apply more pressure to improve the situation, and it tends to actually get worse. And we focus on the wrong things. You're focusing on, okay, how many sales have we made? You know, what does the pipeline look like? And all of those metrics that are kind of a bit in the background, whereas we should be thinking about performance and quality of conversations and how to improve the situation. Teams become overwhelmed, staff churn increases, customer satisfaction reduces, and of course we lose opportunities. So we have to kind of turn this on its head. I really like this quote. I'm sure you've seen it before. You know, chief finance officer asks the chief executive officer, what happens if we invest in developing our people and then they leave us? And the chief executive officer replies, what happens if we don't do that and they stay? Right? This is really important that we make this investment in our people. And if we think about, this is interesting, in the world of sales professionals, so this is people whose job it is to sell, 55% of them have never been trained to sell. So they're trained on the product, they're trained on the market, trained on the customer, they're trained on the business, all of that stuff. And then they're encouraged to go out and start these conversations, but nobody actually says to them, let's talk about how to structure a sales conversation. Let's talk about what the customer's thinking. Let's talk about how to guide the customer through that approach. And I'm a big fan of understanding the customer journey and how does the sales process align with it. So I like to think about the sales funnel, and you'll notice that this funnel is upside down. We've reversed the funnel, because if you think about traditional sales funnels, what they have you believe is that, you know, they go from wide at the top to narrow at the bottom, and that gravity will draw the customer down through the funnel. Well, those of you who have been in conversations where you're trying to drive sales and improve commitment from your customers, you'll know that that isn't how it works. You have to draw people up through the funnel, so the gravity acts against you in a sales process. So we reverse the funnel and think about it from bottom to top. So this is the customer on the left, and we've got the sales process on the right. So customer journey on the left, customer starts unaware that there's an opportunity, unaware that they can do something that's going to help them to improve or change. And so what we do is, in the first instance, we prepare. We make sure that we're prepared and we've got all of the information that we need. We know a bit about what customers like that want. We know something about the market, the technology that exists, that kind of thing. And in that preparation, what we're able to do is start to give messages to customers that get their attention. So first step is they're unaware, now they're attentive. When someone's attentive, what we then need to do is establish credibility. We do that through sharing insights and key pieces of information that get that customer to engage and think, okay, this is someone that, you know, I trust, is credible. Once we've shared those insights, we move the customer from attentive to interested. And this is the biggest trap that we find in a sales conversation. When someone's interested, what a lot of people are tempted to do is jump in and start talking all about what they can do and the service they offer. And actually what we need to do is pivot now to a needs-based kind of questioning and listening stage of the conversation. So when someone's interested, we say, well, it's good that you're interested. Tell me a bit about why this is interesting for you. Tell me a bit about the business that you're working in. Tell me a bit about the challenges that you're facing. And then that customer opens up. And the reason that's important is because the customer's not only processing what's going on for themselves and sharing it, but they're also selling themselves on the next stage of the process, which is to have a desire to change, which is what Ola said, momentum is the drive to change. This is about how do we create that drive to change. We do it through getting the customer to talk about what they're looking to do and change for themselves. And then, of course, once we understand what the customer needs, so you're saying this is important, you're saying this is a challenge, you're saying you don't like this, saying that there's an impact here, it might be costing you money to do that, you might be losing efficiency, whatever it is, we can then say, you know, I think there is something we can do to help. Would it be okay if I share a little bit about how I think we could help? And that opens the door to being able to talk about a solution. We do it at a point when the customer has a desire to change. If we start to talk about a solution when the customer's only attentive, they feel like they're bombarded by information. Whereas once they've had the chance to talk to us about what they're looking for, and then we match what we can provide to what they need, then it feels much more like we've created something of value for that customer that's really tailored and relevant. And of course, by talking about solutions at a time when a customer has a desire to change, they're much more likely to want to take action. Our job then is to make a proposal. So to say, okay, here's how it works. Here's what we know is most effective. And this is where we kind of switch from it's all about the customer to now we're starting to lead that conversation. And we want the proposal to kind of eventually that next stage of the customer journey is they become a customer. Okay, I was prepared to take action. Now I'm actually going to make a purchase. And even when a customer is going to do that, we just have to make sure that at the final stage we create some kind of immediacy and urgency. And when we think about maintaining momentum, this is the part that does it. And that immediacy is about creating, you know, value, but also clarity for the customer about what they need to do next and why that's important to them. And ultimately, what we want are clients that kind of are loyal, want to keep using our business, keep returning, and potentially even referring other people from their network. And we do that through a process of reflection and improvement. And so this is the customer journey on the left, as you see, and a sales process as we walk that customer through those decisions. And of course, it's important that customers know your brand, know you as a provider, like what you're doing, and trust you to deliver. So that's why that journey, know, like, and trust is quite well known on social media. But when you think about the full journey, it's a little bit more. There's a little bit more in depth. There's a little more detail to it that we need to consider. And then we think about psychology and motivation. We also start to think about foundations of sales success. I like to think about these three foundations of not only sales success but high performance. The first foundation is psychology, so having the right mindset, thinking about things in the right way, building self-confidence and determination and motivation. So psychology is really important. Once we get the right psychology in place, then we should be starting to look at skill development. Are we able to communicate effectively? Are we able to deliver in a way that gives that customer confidence, so that they see us as skillful, as being able to do what we need to do to meet their needs? And then the final element that really unlocks the next level of performance is about systemizing. So once you've got the right mindset, you've developed the right skills, are you doing the right things in the right order to make sure that you get that reproducible, consistent result for your customer and for your business? And this is how we start to think about really structuring the right approach to developing and delivering for clients and for our businesses. And when you think about, I'm sure you've seen these stats before, but this is kind of interesting research that shows, if you look at when you have a prospective early conversation in a sales context, 48% of people actually will have a single conversation and never follow up with a prospect. 48%. 25% of salespeople or people in sales-based situations make a second contact and stop. 12% make 3 contacts and stop. Only 10% of salespeople make more than 3 contacts. Okay. Then you look at these stats. 2% of sales are made on first contact, 3% on second, 5% on third, 10% on fourth, and 80% of sales are made on the 5th to 12th contact. So we have to have a structure in place that helps us to make that follow-up systematic. If we don't have a systematic follow-up, you can see that you're just going to keep burning through resources and not getting to the levels of commitment that we want. And this is why very often, if you do have a process like this, you'll see that later on in the sales cycle is when you start to generate those real opportunities. We've got to follow up with people and do it consistently. And we use in our business, I use this toolkit. Over the years, I've developed so many different tools that I thought, instead of having them as individual tools, let's pull them into a single toolkit. So this is our sales toolkit, and got lots of templates in here, but lots of it really helps with building and developing confidence, not just the mindset program, but when you have a plan for your approach, when you've mapped out your pipeline, when you've got key stakeholders, you understand how you're managing them, you've got your sales and your questions all lined up, and you've got them kind of structured and documented. It's amazing how that impacts confidence, because you're no longer second guessing, you're actually working through a structured approach that is going to deliver the optimal result for you and for your business. And I'll share this preparation framework, because this is really useful, because preparation breeds confidence. I like to think about preparation, and you'll all be familiar with like the traditional SWOT analysis. This is like a SWOT analysis for sales. And I think about the client on the left and myself and our business on the right. I think about on the y-axis what's going on internally for that client and for our business, and what's going on externally. When you start to build out a plan like this, you say, right, what's happening for that person, that individual, whether that's their company or whether it's them at an individual level, what's going on for them as they look out at what they're trying to achieve in the market or what they're trying to achieve for themselves, but looking at that, benchmarking themselves against competition, for example, what are they seeing? And then from a personal perspective, how do we need to manage ourselves in the conversation? What resources do we need? And then how do we position ourselves in a way that is seen by the client as externally validated? It may be through testimonials, referrals, case studies, use cases, all that stuff. But really starting to think about mapping those things out, so that when you have a conversation and when you approach a conversation, you feel really confident that what you're doing is going to really engage a customer in the most appropriate way. And I like to think about, we talked about that customer journey. I also like to think about sales as a cycle. So it's a continuum of conversations, and it starts with being prepared, as we said. Then we think about connecting and having rapport, making sure that there is a personal connection with the prospective customer or the existing customer. Then we think about insights and sharing insights that have impact, positive impact for the customer. This is early value creation in the conversation. Then we ask about their needs and understand what are they really trying to achieve. Then we talk about a solution that meets those needs, simple but very often missed. Then we make a proposal and we demonstrate leadership and credibility, and then we create immediacy as the final stage of the process. You'll see that in between the needs discovery and proposal agreement stages, the arrows are multi-directional. So if you make a proposal and say to a customer, you know, here's what we should do next, here's how it works, and the customer says, I'm not sure I'm ready for that, then you might just track back and say, no problem at all, what have we missed? What else is important to you? So we use this kind of mini cycle here just to track back and make sure that we understand exactly what the customer is looking for and we're aligned with it through that solutions discussion and the proposal. And then that allows us to make this immediate action stage much more compelling for the customer and for our business. Because if we don't have that follow-up, then we will find that sales opportunities drift. And then I talked about the reflection stage and really thinking about how we improve ourselves on an ongoing basis. And I think that should be part of the cycle. We're regularly asking ourselves those questions: what's going well? What am I learning? What do I need to change and improve? That's how we get, you know, much better loyalty from customers and clients. And of course, all of this, having a structure, following a structure, builds confidence. So we really want to think about, you know, when we think about sales confidence and motivation, actually sometimes that's because there's a little bit of uncertainty about what we're doing and the way we're approaching it. If we use a more structured approach, gives us confidence. And so then we start to think about, you know, engaging customers and how do we get people to meet us. One of the big things is about, you know, we talked about lots of messages and distractions and stuff that's going on for people. We talked about that today, just in creating a bit of thinking space. But we all see messages, you know, we're bombarded by emails, messages on social media. There's stuff coming in left, right, and centre. So how do we cut through the noise that most customers or prospective customers are seeing? And I like to think about it in terms of principles. So there's 3 principles that I like to think about. So we've heard the term customer first. I like to think about, actually, when we're messaging early, think about customer only messaging. So don't mention your company, don't mention your products, don't mention your services. Just talk about, you know, content that is customer led, customer only led. It's just about them. It's just about their problems or challenges, just about what's happening for them in the market. Second principle then is that people don't buy products. People don't buy products, they buy outcomes. They buy what the product is going to give them or deliver for them. And very often we forget that in the early stages of a conversation. You know, customers don't want to buy a new widget or a new technology. What they want is the efficiency that gives them, or the improvement that gives them, or the time saving that gives them, or the additional opportunities that gives them. That's what they're buying. The outcome is the purchase. So we have to remember those 2 principles firstly. And then the third principle is what we call the power of peer references. What that means is we don't talk about, instead of saying, you know, I've got this great product or our business does this great work, instead of saying that, we say customers are telling us that this is really valuable. And just that change in language, just that change in perspective gives your message external validation and greater authority. And 3 things happen for the prospective customer. They are curious because you've positioned it in a way that, you know, someone else like them is getting value. The second is that they get reassured because nobody likes to be first, right? Nobody wants to be the guinea pig. And then third is they get a fear of missing out. So then we start to trigger, you know, action, and we trigger somebody wanting to kind of really engage and dive in. So these things really start to help us. We think about customer only, outcome focus, not product focus, peer reference and referencing, you know, other people like them, and for ourselves thinking, you know, why should the customer trade their time? Why should they invest their time with us when they could be doing other things? So what will make the customer think this is so important, I must see Justin? And that's the sort of messaging we should be starting to create as we're reaching out and as we're following up with people so that they really get it. And you'll see there's lots of stages to the process. You know, that really is early stage. How do we reach out and drive that inspiration and engagement? We talked a bit about sales confidence and motivation. Let's talk now about maintaining momentum. How do we maintain a level of momentum with customers? I like to remind myself that even when you've had a conversation with a customer, even when they seem really engaged, if we don't think about what we do in that moment with them there and then, enthusiasm burns away, right? It's got a half-life. It tends to drift and drop very quickly. So our job is really about how we maintain high enthusiasm with that prospective
Here we
customer.
are.
And so the way I think about it is that we have this final stage, which is called immediate action, and really starting to create immediacy. So we make sure that as final part of any conversation with a prospective customer, when they haven't fully committed, we talk about the actions that we'll take to process, the order, the contract, the start of whatever it is we're doing with them, that next stage. We talk about the timing of those actions. So I'll do this over the next 24 hours or however long that is. And then we talk also about the actions your client needs to take with the timing of those actions. So if I'm able to get this to you within 24 hours, I ask them, how quickly will you be able to review it and then make a decision? Ask them that question, right? And then if they say, well, I'm not around over the weekend or whatever, I'm not around on Monday or Tuesday, it's probably going to be Wednesday before I can really look at this. Okay, that's no problem. So should we catch up Thursday? So we actually just kind of get the customer to really think, when will I be able to make a decision on this? And we get that booked in the diary so that you've got a date and a time for the follow-up. And what happens if you just put this simple principle in place? And a lot of people miss this. It's a huge miss. What happens if you put this principle in place is that you start to get much more structure and organization around the follow-ups that you're having with those customers, and you'll find that your efficiency improves because you're not doing the chasing that you sometimes find yourself doing when you haven't got that commitment from the customer to the next step. So if you let customers kind of go away and think about it, you will end up doing a lot of chasing. So by simply changing the last part of that conversation to, even if a customer says, I do need to go away and think about it, so do you know what? It's absolutely the right thing to do. How long should we give it before we reconvene? How long would you like to consider it, to review, what we covered so far? And when you ask that question, people will answer. They'll say, okay, yeah, no, I'm probably going to need a week. Okay, no problem. So shall we meet next week? Same day next week? Same time next week? Or is there a better time for you next week? And just get the customer will always say yes, and then you just get that next meeting in the diary. And that simple shift, that simple change makes all the difference. And the way I do it is when I'm talking to clients, even if they say, well, I'm going to have to go away and have some internal meetings, I'm going to have to go and talk to other stakeholders and just make sure that what we're doing is aligned, and that's absolutely fine. But I'll say, no problem, how long do you think that's going to take? And they might say, well, it's probably going to take me, I'm going to have to wait for our next management team meeting or whatever it is. And even if it's a month away, even if it's 6 weeks away, even if it's 2 months away, I will say, well, shall we get something in the diary so that it's in your calendar, it's in my calendar, and then it's just easier for both of us to be able to have that follow-up. And that for me is part of the process. It's the final stage of the process. So just making sure that you have that discipline and rigor around that follow-up makes all the difference to maintaining momentum. And I always like to think about it as, there's two, when you think about the two front seats in a car, you think about you in the, as the expert or the salesperson or, that professional, and the potential customer. There are two seats in the front of the car. At any point, if we haven't, taken control and got that next step in the diary, then we've just handed the wheel over to the customer. There's only one steering wheel at the front of the car, and if we don't have our hands on the wheel, then we've lost control of the process, that influencing and sales process. So really important that we get that into our cycle and just make it part of every sales and prospective sales conversation. So I also like to think about this in terms of what works and what develops momentum. You think about classic activity. If you're tearing around doing a load of activity, but you're not using a structured approach, you're not using a cycle, for example, like our sales cycle, then really I love this analogy that you are like a marathon runner. Okay, and you're training hard, you're running hard, you're pushing yourself. But if you're comparing yourself to, if your competitor is using an approach that is more structured, that is cyclical, that's much higher quality, then it's like somebody, for example, managing to get on a bike. And it doesn't matter how hard you run, it doesn't matter how hard you work. If your competitors are using an approach that is much more structured, that gives them that advantage, that is the equivalent of they're on a bike, you're running hard, then you're never going to compete at a level that you want to compete. So actually getting some of these fundamentals in place really does make the difference to your ability to scale and improve the commitment and grow your business. Okay, so I've talked for a little while. I'd love to kind of open this up to some feedback and a bit of discussion. I'd love to hear your kind of key actions. What are you thinking? So we've covered quite a bit of content. As we go through it, it's always different for everybody on the call, because you're in slightly different situations. I'd love to hear your feedback. What are some of your key actions from today's session so far? You can either come off mute and share your ideas. I'd love to hear from you, or you can drop them in the chat if you prefer to just type them in.
Hi, this is Manisha.
Hi, Manisha.
Hi, I did like the fact that the focus on the fact that you gear the conversation rather than being sort of robotic in your approach with, okay, we've got to this step, and to look at what their end goal is.
Yeah.
But I do think we're a specialist practice, and so people come to us, really are referred to us for often high-end treatment, and I think for us if the patient doesn't want to go ahead, it's always about the cost. And I think your approach or your guidance with consistently going back and following up and making sure that you're driving the conversation as long as possible, can that not come across as sort of badgering the patient? And often we all get those calls, and wouldn't that put the patient off?
I think you're right, Manisha. You have to tailor it depending on who it is you're dealing with. So in that situation, there's a few things that are important. So language is important when you talk about high value purchases. So instead of using the term cost, we should always use the word investment. And I don't know if that's something you do, but it's surprising how impactful that is, because when we talk about cost and price, we tend to have this association that we're losing money. Whereas when we use the word investment, we have an association is we're gaining. So talking about investing in yourself, investing in your health, the conversation with the patient is vital. So to ask them, what's brought them here today, what's driving this need for this high-end treatment, this specialist treatment, and understand what is it they're trying to achieve, what impact will that have in their life. So then, is it implantology or something, Manisha? Is it?
Well, we have a range of specialists, but implants is a big thing for us. Our principal's an implantologist, so that is the sort of the bulk of our business.
Okay, so to ask them, why is an implant something they're considering? Why is that important to them? And what will that enable them to get when they think about the experience in their life? What are some of the situations that they're in that this is going to really help them with? And I've seen some really interesting stats on this, where if you look at feedback from patients that have had high-end treatments, and the number of patients, really high number of patients, something crazy like 95% of patients say they get increased confidence as a result. And then there's some statistics where 35 to 40% of people say it improves their job prospects and their career. And so you start to tie those pieces together, and all of a sudden the patient thinks, actually, yes, this is a big investment, but if it makes me feel more confident and it could be good for my career and my work, then it could potentially be something that pays me back in future, which is exactly what investment is. To start to have those conversations, so you go beyond what the treatment is and really talk about what can it do for the patient, what are they expecting it to do for them, because then that starts to become not only something they really engage with, but it creates an emotional connection. And we know that all purchasing decisions are emotional, right? They're
Yes.
all emotional,
Yes.
and they're backed up by logic, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going for this, that what they'll say, the story they tell themselves is about what it helps them to achieve, and then they're like, oh, and actually I can find a way to fund it by doing X, Y, and Z, right?
Yes.
Because that's what's really going on. But the high emotion is what will make them want that decision. And then, of course, being able to help them to see, where this fits in terms of their finances and their budget. So finance options, budget options, payment plans are really important, because
Yes.
they can start to help patients. They'll start to join that. Okay, well, so this is about the same as I'm paying for that sofa, or it's about the same as I'm budgeting for a holiday, or it's about the same as I'm, insert
Yeah.
something they can then associate with it and go, yeah, but this could help my career prospects, and it's going to give me more confidence. So then they start to put those things in context, and it really encourages them. So that's kind of how to structure the conversation.
Yes.
In terms of the follow-up, I'm a big advocate for agree the follow-up with the patient. So talk to them about, if now isn't the right time, what are they thinking in terms of when could be the right time?
Okay.
And if someone says, well, I'm going to need, I'm going to need to go, I might need to go away and, maybe review my financials, talk to my partner, I might need to talk to my parents, I might need to just have a look at, when my loan on this ends, or whatever it is. Just say, yeah, I think it's really pragmatic. It's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
So if we were to follow up with you after you've been able to, do that work and check those things, when would be the best time? And just ask. And then they might say, well, I'm probably going to need a few weeks or a month, or someone might say, it won't be this year. It may be, I have to look at, it might be April, May next year. And so in which case I say to people, I think no problem at all. Would you like one of our team to follow up with you? Say you said April, maybe in April next year. And the patient says, yeah, that'd be great. Brilliant. We'll put a note in our diary. Shall we talk about a time for that? Shall we just maybe book a short call with one of our team? And what that does is it has this impact and effect that, because the patient's agreed it, and I'm a fan of, once you've agreed that, diarise it, send them a calendar invitation so they mark their diary, and then they start to see it coming. So they get to March, they're looking through their diary for April, they're, oh, I've got that conversation coming up with the practice. I must make sure that I've checked my finances so that I can respond. And it doesn't mean you're going to get every single patient every time committing, but you will get a higher percentage that will commit in that follow-up.
On that, and in your experience, can I ask then that do you find that patients are more likely to convert and ask for times that are outside of business hours?
Kind of for the follow-up conversation.
Yes.
Very often it'll be like an early evening or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
That's okay. And just having that as part of the sequence. So if there's someone, in your front of house team, or someone, maybe, I don't know if you've got a TCO, but that person that can do that follow-up, that just makes sure that you have confidence that the follow-up's conducted in the right way as well.
Yes. Perfect. Thank you.
Pleasure. Great question, Manisha. Thank you. Thanks for going into the detail of it as well, because the devil's always in the detail, isn't it?
Yeah.
Always in the detail. But hopefully that's useful. Yes. So
yes, it was. Thank you.
Yeah, let me know how you get on with that. It's really good.
Will do.
Yeah, thank you. Brilliant. Any other questions from anybody? Anything else that people want to cover or sense check while you've got me? I always take silence as consensus to move on, but I'm just going to give you a moment in case anybody's not on. They're on mute and they're trying to come off mute. Any other questions today? Okay, no worries. So let me. I've got a couple other things I wouldn't mind sharing with you. So thank you for engaging today. Really good question. Thank you everybody so far. Right. So I run a lot of these kind of open programs. We call them sales academies. I thought today would be a good opportunity just to share that with you. We have a couple of things that we do, we kind of invite people to take our scorecard, so like a diagnostic scorecard, just to understand where are you right now, what are the areas that will be the best focus for you, to give you that kind of shift in momentum and growth. You get a personal development report and some recommendations in there. We then have what we call our Academy and e-learning timeline. So it's a 12-month program, lots of content, so like a video-based program with lots of different modules. We give copies of the book, digital and paperback. And then we have a monthly mastermind, like a sales mastermind web class, where people join us on Zoom. And as well as working through the content in your own time, every month you get the chance to regroup, talk about what's going on for you in your specific area of responsibility, your business, and how you can get some coaching and help to start to improve on some of those areas. We have a private WhatsApp group, so you can message either into the group or you can message me one-to-one. And then we have this continually evolving the content, improving it. Sessions like this get uploaded, so there's lots of different content that we've got that we work through, and every month those sessions are uploaded into the portal as well. And what we try and do within the sales masterminds is really create this environment where you have a place you can come to talk about things confidentially, but also where you can talk with other people who are part of your community, doing things like trying to grow their business, really trying to improve their sales approach. You've got opportunity for collaborations, so you learn from what other people are doing and trying and improving. You get some challenge to your ideas and your thinking. So just new perspectives on different conversations or situations. And then, of course, a commitment. We encourage you to commit to making improvements. And then each month we go back through those commitments. So you get this cycle of improvement that really starts to compound for you and for your business. We've got a couple of resources. Talked about the scorecard. There's a sales acceleration scorecard there. If anybody wants to take that scorecard, it is free. Let me just put the link to that scorecard in the chat for you, so you can start on that. So let me put it, hold on a sec. So it's in the chat if anybody wants to take that. That's the scorecard. You can also, as I say, the book is a really good resource. So if you'd rather do kind of work through it yourself, you've got an opportunity to do that. You can get your copy of the book here. Hold on, actually, let me give you a link to that as well. So that's the book. That will take you through to Amazon to get the book if it's something you'd like to look at. And then final thing, if you are interested in joining one of our sales masterminds, just drop me a note, let me know. I'd be very happy to talk you through how it works, what we do. We have 2 academies. So one of them is more sales focused and how to grow through a better consultative sales approach. We also have a leadership academy, which is more around how to develop a coaching leadership style to inspire your teams and start to coach people to improve their performance rather than feel like you're always having to give them that direction. So a couple of options around our mastermind communities. And then, of course, we do a lot of bespoke work with individual clients, businesses, practices, that kind of thing as well. So very happy to have conversations with you if you think either of those would be useful. And then final link, so you've got a couple of things to look at. Third thing to look at is if you would like to have a conversation with me one-to-one about what's going on for your business, then here's a link to my diary. This gets you straight into my calendar. It's a 45-minute discovery session where you can talk about your business, what's happening for you, and I'm happy to give you kind of advice and coaching that hopefully is valuable on a one-to-one level as well. Okay, we did all of that before 5 to 10. Who'd have thought it was possible? I was doubting myself at about 9:30, but we managed it. So thank you everybody for joining us this morning. Anka says thank you in the chat. Thanks, Anka. Thank you, lovely to see you. I'm happy to stay for any further questions if anybody has anything else they want to pick up with me. Otherwise, you also have 5 minutes now before your 10 o'clock appointments or meetings or whatever else you've got planned for today. So it is Friday. Have a wonderful weekend once you get through today. I hope you all enjoy a bit of sunshine. Hopefully the weather's going to be good for us. And I look forward to seeing you at the next session. So thanks everybody. Take care. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. I'm happy to stay for questions if anybody has any. Thanks everybody. Thanks. Take care. Have a good weekend.